more opportunity now as an entrepreneur in tech currently, or is that time past? Only opinions, nobody is being quoted. Strictly opinions.
This is the best time.
Best time.
Best time.
Getting into tech.
To be an entrepreneur, tech, get into tech, best time.
Casey Veggies?
It's always a good time. I would say, regardless of what's going on in the economy, you always have to be in skill building. You always have to be in developing yourself. Building out your plans, working on your dreams and passions. So there's never a bad time to execute on the ideas that you think will work. I would say there's going to be, if you're somebody that is charging towards like trying to find venture capital, it's a tougher time because companies right now are just being more restrictive with their money. But you're talking about building towards something that is going to pay off, years down the road, right? So there's never a bad time to start building your idea, start working on it. There were so many people during the pandemic that started new businesses that, now they're saying that we're in a hiring crisis because people have realized that they can start their own thing. They can create their own wealth. They can create their own business plans. They can execute for themselves. So I would say it's never a bad time.
Especially, I'm not even talking about overseas outsourcing. Now, so many companies, because of the workforce crunch, they've been forced to outsource to consultants when they would have been dead set on keeping stuff in-house. Around data and stuff is still a little tricky, but entrepreneurs in some ways actually are starting to have hand and leverage in the situation, right? Because, and also, as a business owner, there's a big difference in giving someone a $5,500 consulting contract and having to pay $7,200 for that same individual with bennies and everything like that, and all of the onboarding and stuff like that. So, we'll get back to that. So, can you tell everybody about what you do? I don't even want to try to pretend like I know all of it. I am genuinely interested.
So,
name too, if you don't mind, just so everybody knows.
Yeah, so my name is Casey Morris. I work as a consultant for Microsoft in their federal space. So I help our government customers do different things like move their data into the cloud. I work in data and AI and cybersecurity. I also co-founded Black Tech DFW. My business partner and I, Tristan Carpenter, we focus on people from any background, regardless of where you're coming from. We'll help you find resources, help you find trainings, and make sure that we'll recommend things that are verifiable, that will give you a tangible result, and that aren't something that is going to break your budget. So we have our own in-house training, but we also provide training referrals, and we host sessions where we talk about bringing transferable skills, soft skills development, optimizing your LinkedIn, resume building. So connecting to all those resources and helping folks finding jobs in tech. So that's my passion.
Stellar. And before we move on to anybody else, as far as it sounds like there's an ecosystem and network that even as broad as it sounds now, well, I'm guessing you strike me as someone who's thinking 3 to 10 years down the road. And as that network gets larger, it actually there's unlimited possibility of the activity that can function in and outside of that cloud, right? So talk to me a little bit about the direct training programs that you do offer, and then how does the referral work? Is it a case-by-case basis, or are you developing something where it's almost like people are taking a skills assessment and you're referring, are you building like an AI program to kind of comb through that to place them? Or is it more of a caseworker thing where you're getting to know the individual and giving them wraparound services or training they need?
Right now it's closer to a caseworker thing, where if I meet someone, they say that they're interested, we'll schedule a free assessment call. I'll talk to them about the programs that they're currently working on, boot camps or trainings that they've taken in the past, whether those were successful for them, and make some recommendations to them just based off of my network, my experience, And a lot of times what I've seen is, folks will enroll in training programs, but they didn't necessarily get the result that they wanted. So I like to push for industry certifications, which is why right now we're focusing on cyber, because of the growth prospects in cybersecurity are so it's massive. So the White House announced recently they're looking to get 700,000 people into cyber. The actual shortfall for professionals that are ready for those jobs is about 3.5 million. So there's going to be 3.5 million roles opening up. Unfortunately, it may be closely tied to the issues that we're having with Russia and China, but those skills are going to be needed. And one thing about cybersecurity is that there's so many roles underneath that umbrella. So whether you do UX, if you are in Java, if you are project manager, program manager, you can fit under the cyber umbrella. The main hurdle that you'll have to overcome is speaking that cyber language. So that's what our in-house course is meant to do. So it's to get your feet wet in cybersecurity and understanding those practices and get you ready for an industry level cybersecurity certification.
Yeah, nice. I'm speaking for all the people in the audience. They all just silently said to themselves, damn, dude, that guy's smart as hell. Thank you for that. That's awesome. And then I'll come back. I have some other questions because I really want to, this is going to replace the meeting that we have to have, the intro, get to know you one, so that when we meet, we can just build, right? So I love that. Darby. So, tell us about what you do in this life.
Well, my name is Darby Ross. I'm the non-technical founder of the Incarcerated People's Project. So we're very big in the prison reform movement, and this is our biggest, kick back to the system, to be honest with you. It's an untouched market, so why wouldn't we get in on something that people are just monopolizing right now? And the experience for the incarcerated individual, as well as their loved one who's in the free population, but either is facing social stigma, they're not able to communicate with their loved one behind bars, or just the experience associated with digital communication is very tough in this space. And one of the most contributing factors to how difficult it is the price to be able to communicate with someone digitally. A lot of inmates are getting additional time because they've snuck in a cell phone, whereas we're on our cell phones too much, and no one's telling us to get off the cell phone. So we have people that are, again, getting additional time to their sentencing just to have this humanity. And so we're making it available to them. That's what we said.
Same word. Keep going.
Same word. Yeah.
Okay, so you're talking about, you're trying to solve kind of a digital divide, right? It's a total monopoly that the telecommunication provider has with the prisons. I suspect the Sheriff's Association that run the prisons are probably getting kickbacks.
Yeah.
And being charged, and the thing is, it's gouging. It's price gouging through and through, especially with government-funded facilities, which is illegal on so many different levels.
Yeah.
But we all kind of know, I think that we suspect the reasons why it's not called out. So you're trying to shed light on that issue. At the same time, the practical side is you're actually trying to make it allowable for incarcerated humans caught in the prison industry, to be able to actually have digital devices so they don't get held hostage, so they can actually speak to their loved ones.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
The biggest part right now is the red tape. So number one, we're gamifying communications through, we're playing chess. The inmates are playing chess anyway, so play chess with me. So we're gamifying that communication while clearing the red tape for both the youth as well as the adult and prison population at this time. The biggest part is making sure that our technology coincides with current legislation to make sure that we're not breaking any laws. we have to be compliant on so many different levels. Our technology is already being used within community colleges, which whenever you're communicating with students, you have to be BERPA compliant. So we're already BERPA compliant. We're adding an educational side to be able to use that to get within facilities today. And that requires partnerships with nonprofit and for-profit entities to make that possible, so.
And with that compliance, so you basically, by being in that compliance, you can tap into their existing communications with their students at community colleges and get into that pipeline, and you figured out how to do that. So you're going behind the walls to do it exactly in the same way.
Yes, sir.
Holy shit, that's brilliant. Okay, we're gonna hop around on some of the questions because I don't wanna get stale and boring with this. So Alan, you know, I've known you for a while now. You very rarely are the loudest guy in the room. You have a tendency to be an observer, but you're very passionate about when you work with young people. You're very passionate whenever you're working with adults, and now you're starting to work with individuals on the range of abilities, right?
Yes.
So what is it like doing that job as an African American man in 2023? And I ask that question because of the month, right? Because we're sitting in it. So I'm genuinely curious because you aren't someone who only says something when they have something to say.
Yes. So, well, given what I do, it's pretty much, I've experienced like people with disabilities pretty much most of my life. I have a little brother who has it, and I have a grandmother, and I have an aunt who has either fostered or taken care of people who have certain disabilities. And of course, you kind of see a wide margin within the, like, of course there are people within the Black community who have these certain abilities, who don't have required help or needs, and when it is present amongst other people, they're often mislabeled as either they're some troublemaker or they got on the spectrum doing drugs. And I wish I remember this, but there was even a case where there was a young man who was, he was kind of big. I don't know exactly what it is, but then when police found him, they then proceeded to like overdose him with certain sedatives to make him calm down. And unfortunately, he lost his life. And I regret telling the story without knowing the young dude's name. But yeah, so essentially what this current job would do is basically being a job trainer. I help get these, like, it's not exclusively African American, just mainly like kids, because they're reaching that age where they're not going to be going to school anymore. They're going to be going out into the workforce, and then pretty much help them get situated, learn how to interact, learn how to do the job. Essentially, help them basically learn how to navigate through this new life they're about to begin. And I have noticed that, like, fortunately, my brother has this, but I'm not too sure about other people within the Black community who has these like resources, because of course there's a whole process behind it. You have to call certain people, have to schedule certain appointments, and then and some people you have to be financially able to provide to accommodate people with certain disabilities. So at the moment, since it is still kind of a new thing doing it like, you know, job wise versus me like being with relatives who took care of these people. But at the moment, I would say, at the moment, it does need more attention. And if it doesn't, it definitely needs to be. Because there are many places who have certain people with disabilities, they don't know how to accommodate for them, and people do need this help. So that's pretty much what I can say about that.
Yeah. It's awesome work that you're doing. Anybody want to build on anything Alan said before I ask the next question?
Ma'am, you spoke a lot about the Black community, right? And obviously, coming from your experience as a member, how do you feel like, with us in the current fight to regain our power, to build on legacy, spark generational wealth, how do we also provide access to power to people with abilities? I mean, with special needs? How do you feel like we can make sure that they can feel empowered during these times as well, especially with economic and job insecurity? How do we empower those who already have a different battle that we might not fully be able to understand?
I don't have a complete answer to that, but all I can say is just like make sure that we are there for them.
Yeah.
You are here, you're here, I'm here, we can do this. And so let's get on with it.
Yeah.
One thing that at Microsoft there's a big push towards accessibility. So that means making sure that the software they're building, the hardware, the tools, anything that is human-computer interface, we have accessibility checks to make sure that you check for color blindness, that it's able to be read by an e-reader. So like if somebody needs to use like an online reader, your software, your program has to be able to plug into that and use it correctly. So we have programs that can run through your code and check it for accessibility. We have whole accessibility teams like in the Xbox space and in our hardware and peripheral space to make sure that we have devices and tools that can be used by people that are differently able. Now it's not nearly as comprehensive as it needs to be. It's not nearly as focused on as it needs to be because it's still on the periphery of the business model, right? Business model's like you want to get your code out, execute the contract, and then move on to the next one. So we're trying to be more aware of accessibility, and there are incentives for being more accessible, improving that, but it's still not nowhere near where it needs to be.
Yeah, and it feels like it's like critical mass, everything's kicking up momentum with it, right? And I'm curious if anybody wants to comment on it. It's just more of a hypothesis. A lot of folks that have different levels of ability often are very reliant in the past on organizations like the Texas TX10 Technology Access Network to get the physical tools that they need to be able to work from home. Well, it's been such a massive shift in the last 3 years towards so much remote access work. I wonder if there's truly like a monster market opportunity and so many more people now starting to be correctly diagnosed on the spectrum and correctly diagnosed as opposed to being obstinate and stuff like that. And whenever there's a larger market, private industry, and I'm seriously not saying anything towards any of the brands that y'all work for, I'm saying capitalism, extractive capitalism, has a tendency, if it's a bigger market, they want to throw more money at it, and it actually works out, right? It actually makes society better. So I wonder if that could maybe be something that happens.
I was thinking about that, like how much of a profit margin, because I'm a numbers guy, right? How much of a profit, and thank you for the accessibility, saying that it's code, because I need to make sure that my technology is accessible, right? And that made me think, how much of a margin are we missing because we're not as accessible to people with disabilities? If we saw how much work could be done by people working at home because they were essentially disabled to being able to commute, but now we've created job access to people that can work from home and almost do the task just as much as they were going into the office, paying for insurance, paying for office space, the elevator to go up and down, the lights to turn on. Now they're working at home, the expense isn't there. How much money can we be missing? Because there's nothing wrong with having a money conversation. Are we missing because things aren't as friendly to people on the spectrum? Because number one, we already can acknowledge these people are very creative. So if we're missing highlighting their creativity, we're missing that much more and capitalizing off of it.
I agree fully. And even though they have disabilities, it doesn't mean that they're not able to be in the space, have their input taken and actually utilized. Because how are we going to get these numbers or improve on it if we don't have person from that community giving us insight.
Yeah. Think about artificial intelligence right now.
Okay.
How much artificial intelligence is learning because we're able to input certain data factors, but we're definitely not taking advantage. I hate that word when we're talking about people. We're not utilizing. Thank you. We're not utilizing the data from those with special needs. Because I have a son. He's about to be 6 years old. He's the most logical person. I enjoy conversations with him because he's so logical. But he's on the spectrum as well. So can he help transform how we compute technology, how we express creativity, you know? But we're not giving him a voice. We are at home. We are at programs that we're getting, but it's not normalized. It's specialized.
Yeah, you have to find like how as a guardian for that when he's out in the wild, right?
Yeah.
It's it weighs on the guardians. All right, well I want to like shift because there's a couple of people on the stage that maybe arrived. They're either in the early stages or they arrived into tech in a much different way than maybe I think we were talking about. What the hell does traditional and normal even mean anymore?
Yeah.
So Todd, the question that I sent out, everybody else had the benefit of actually seeing this in advance, so I'll read the question. Describe your journey and where you're from and what got you interested in a career in tech.
So, describe where I'm from.
Sure, yeah, like where you're from and how you got to where you are.
Oh, so I'm a Fort Worth native,
Okay.
Texas all my life. Just with the, I guess with the way that the world has transitioned, my husband kind of pushed me towards exploring tech. I'm a very creative person. I enjoy putting my hand in many facets when it comes to exploring that creativity. So in the coding boot camp, it's interesting to learn a language, a new language, essentially, and see what you're putting into code come into fruition. So right now I'm learning HTML and CSS, and we're currently working on creating a web page, and we have to discuss our favorite TV show and the characters and the plot and things like that. So I personally have chosen Gangs of London. Love Gangs of London. So yeah, just being able to develop a color scheme for my table, play with different fonts, and just exploring it. I feel like a kid in a candy store, or a kid learning something for the first time. It's interesting that all of this goes into what we see on a day-to-day basis. So that's my little journey.
Awesome. I'm coming back to you to see like the good and the bad so far in your journey and that. But I mean, for some of you cats that are a little bit more experienced on the technology side, it's like when she's describing like the color of the tables, does it feel like hearing like whenever you hear like an Usher song and you're just like, damn, back in the day I remember that. It's just like you kind of remember that purity of like when you first discovered it, right? Does it feel like that for you? Yeah, right.
Sure.
I mean, it's like a nostalgic thing, right?
Yeah, it does.
Full transparency. God, I suck at coding. I don't have the attention span for it, right?
Yeah.
But like I don't paint the murals either, and I don't have I don't farm, and I don't repair houses directly, and it's about like building models, right? And everybody that has started a program inside of our organization, that is their dream. Like it is their dream. Their dream isn't to do grant writing, compliance, budget to actuals, fundraising, and recruitment. Like that's not their dream. Their dream is to do their thing, and so the Walls has kind of evolved into this like rocket ship vehicle for people. It's really actually, truly, it is like watching a rocket ship launch, and then the capsule gets into the passive stratosphere, and it kind of becomes its own thing, and that's where we really start to create and get weird, because creativity we do not lack. I said for sure. That's fascinating. So Brandon, what about you? How did you like as much as you're comfortable with, like, what was your life before and like now that you're doing this?
So initially, my life before I got like into tech, I was around tech. I started at Best Buy selling computers.
Okay. Geek Squad.
Yeah. I wasn't on the Geek Squad side.
Okay.
My lords were insecure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I lived up to those guys.
Yeah.
So I just started understanding the hardware first, kind of like a outside, kind of look it in type thing, and then understanding like what the different pieces of hardware actually do, and how they actually like help you if you're trying to do like coding or gaming, blah 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 blah. So that's kind of how I started my matriculation, and then I got into IT at a warehouse in Richardson. And from there, like I had two guys that were like my supervisors or whatever. They taught me the basics of like troubleshooting.
Mm-hmm.
Like if the printer doesn't work, unplug it, plug it back in. You know what I'm saying? Like if the computer's not working, restart. And that's kind of how I got my feet wet. Like I was just thrown into the water, and so that type of atmosphere, like it was fast paced for me. And then I was able to learn a new skill that I saw the relevancy. Because I have a computer at home, I wanted to learn what was really eye-catching to me, learning the hotkeys. Like, bruh. Like, bruh.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe that, but like,
Why did I know this sooner?
Control V,
Yeah.
paste. I never knew it. So
Yeah.
just learning the hotkeys for me was like a big thing. And then recently, like 2020, I went to Perscolas and got
Oh, okay.
my man. I got accepted to Perscolas, and then I got my CompTIA A+ certification. And so that like kind of put me in the space of like understanding the processes of how to basically dwindle down what the problem could be and what it's not. And then if it's this, how do you troubleshoot? Like, it's just different levels. It got deeper. And so, like, I don't know, bro. It's just, my life has just been slowly submerging into tech. And so now, like, I'm on your level, trying to create a website using HTML, using Code Academy, and learning the new language is phenomenal. I'm right there with you, like, typing in, like, BR, breaking the information down so it's easy to read, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Putting it in, stacking it.
Your space is right.
You feel me?
It's annoying.
Yeah, bro, annoying. Cause I was stuck. I think I probably missed like a closing bracket, like a greater than sign.
Yeah.
I missed it, and so I'm like running this code. I'm like, bro, I'm looking through it. I'm like, bro, it should be working.
The whole thing's crashing. Just going, yeah, one character.
I don't understand how people who code don't break monitors all the time. Like I listen to metal music all the time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's like
What-
Hulk smash.
What happens is you're angry for the whole day, you put it down, you're pissed off, you go sit down, you go take a shower.
You go do something that
That's
works.
right. You figure it out, yeah, you figure it out. You're like finally laying down in bed, like, that's what it was.
Yeah.
Why did I see this yesterday?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
And then I feel like the biggest idiot in the world.
Yeah,
I'd be like, I hope nobody saw that.
You know what it feels like?
Okay.
It feels like a technical renaissance period. That's what it feels like. Like it really feels like that y'all are at the forefront of something that's gonna be stone age to the next generation, right? But we need everybody in these spaces to build this environment. Cause I was thinking about it, and you know, it's funny how technology is a lot like the civil rights era.
You're crazy.
You know where I'm going with this? Because less than 100 years ago, we got the internet, right? Now we're talking about the metaverse and how freaky it is going to be, right? Then you go from an era trying to liberate people who are descendants of slaves to a broad term like, you know, people of color. You take the back seat on a lot of the campaigns to understand the resources. Who do I call? Because my child has special needs.
That's pivotal right there.
But the space is so inclusive now because of the rapid advancements and improvements, just like an update to this new feature, this new capability, to where you can forget what's going on, you know what I mean? And you never had access to that power that we were talking about.
I agree with you,
Yeah.
but I also want to say, like, yeah, we're in that period of like basically openness, but since we're there, this is the perfect time to, if we wanted to, create a space.
Yeah.
This would be this is the perfect time.
Do you think it's any barriers in creating this space? I know that was a question. Because I don't think so.
I mean, with all the advancements in technology right now, no.
Yeah, I don't think so. Like, I don't want to learn how to code. And Casey wants to break the computer when he tries. But y'all are good at it. So,
You can still teach one another.
yeah.
And if you don't necessarily code, that doesn't mean that you're not gonna be. There's not a space for you.
Yeah,
Like,
it's a space still.
You know what I mean?
But that's why, before I became a non-tech, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was looking at Casey because
Yeah.
I'm coming to you. You feel like there are barriers.
Well, what is happening right now, like with the layoffs, in the background or under the umbrella of like the companies themselves, like we're seeing cuts to funding for diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that like just 2 years ago, there were, the big push, like all the dollars, all the funding, and then now like you're seeing that being cut off, and I'm seeing a lot of black and brown faces in the people that are announcing their layoffs. So yeah, there's a lot more access today because we now have means of connecting to one another through social media. Like we can create Discords. Like I can get on Black Tech Twitter and get tons of resources and access. But we still, like when it comes to tech, like yeah, there are a lot of companies that operate within the tech space, but a lot of the hiring is still dominated by the biggest players, right?
That
So
is
Microsoft
true.
alone is like 170,000 people across the globe.
Jeez.
Amazon, Apple, Twitter, Facebook, Google, all these companies, and they're going to be the biggest players. So when they start cutting back off dollars that are supposed to go to our community, we're going to feel the impact very quickly, especially because we're still early in creating these networks and these funding sources. So we have to do more of that so that we can keep the funds flowing in to keep the programs going. Because like we started building out mentorship programs, you have nonprofits that are teaching kids to code. If you start cutting off those funds, they're gonna feel it immediately.
They're drying up
Yeah.
right now. And when I hear what you're speaking, I hear the word power. Not access, not DEI, power. And power is still centralized.
Very much so.
And within power, like you can get a dose of power, but do you have the ability to protect it? You have to be able to protect your power. Like, if you can kill an unarmed black man on TV and still get funding,
We still ain't got no.
you got power. You have protection over power. You know what I'm saying? We don't want to abuse the power, but you know what? When the funding is going, I'm just telling you, like, as a black man, what I see, right? When the funding is coming from the Diversity and Inclusion Office, sometimes we come up with the idea on CP time. Black people know what that means, colored people time. We come up with the idea, we late to the party. Why are we late to include our thoughts with where the money should go? Because without seeing any names, the company I work for, if I don't use this budget, I'm not gonna get it next year.
Yeah, it's gone.
It's gone.
Yeah.
So if we can go the traditional route, we can celebrate Martin Luther King Day, we can plan Juneteenth. But outside of that, I mean, it's nothing to throw you a couple thousand for those two things. Outside of that, where's the representation for our community? So sometimes it is barriers. You touched on a good point. It is barriers. I know you're about to say something. You touched on a good point. It is barriers, and we shouldn't ignore the barriers. But while we're not ignoring the barriers, while we're acknowledging it, are we still showing up? Or are we just waiting on what we feel like we deserve? Sometimes we have to put your foot in to go get what you deserve, right?
I mean, amongst folks in this room, I don't think any of us are like waiting.
Yeah,
what I mean?
no, we not
But
waiting.
but when you talk to like the general public, or even, black folks that work in tech, what happens is once you get into the company, it's like, okay, I'm trying to protect, what I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying to step outside of, you know what I mean? I'm not trying to focus on opening the door wider. I'm trying to make sure I'm not getting pushed out. And that's what happens to a lot of people. They get, you know what I mean? Like sticking your neck out and saying what's on your mind and advocating for funding and doing all this, that takes time. That's the labor that we have to do to keep that door open, right? And it's on us to make sure that we're advocating, we're continuing to ask for funds because, there are some folks that, I'm not faulting them for it, but they might be the first person in their family to make that type of money.
Exactly. You about to say something? I know I want to say something.
I want to yes on that. When you're saying people, this might be their first time making that money. I respect that.
Yeah.
I can't go against the grain and say that's not pivotal.
Yeah.
Because I've been there. I want to also kind of just add to that and say maybe just incorporate more self-sustaining, more skills. So maybe they just don't depend on this one. You feel me?
More entrepreneurship.
Make yourself invaluable, irreplaceable, and so valuable that you have the power, even if it get,
Even if you are in that company, you can still, I'm gonna speak my mind for maybe this specific group that might not have a voice. I'm not gonna be scared to speak my mind because I'm not just, I don't have my hand out.
Yeah.
I think that thing is growing more and more and more. I'm seeing more folks, like I said, starting their own thing on the side, starting their own consulting company, starting their own, just straight up recruiting company, helping people get hired. You're seeing that more and more. Whereas the old school way of thinking was, I'm gonna work for this company for 20 plus years and I'm gonna get my retirement and I'm gonna just suffer and survive. It's not like that anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy for that because those, I hate to say it about our elders, but those are the folks that got taken advantage of the most.
Yeah.
Because the company knew that they weren't going anywhere.
they needed it.
They needed that type of loyalty in order to take advantage. And now that doesn't exist anymore, we have a global marketplace, so you can sell your skills anywhere around the world. You know what I mean? You can move, you can maneuver, you can start businesses. So
You about to say something?
Don't think so, but yeah, he definitely got it right.
Can I ask you what do you see as a barrier? Because I know you're learning a lot about coding, but I'm pretty sure you're also checking out the marketplace and what kind of companies and things are out there. Do you see any boxes you want to check before applying for certain industries or contacting the Microsofts and the Apples out there?
You got connects now.
Right.
If I'm being honest, since I'm such in the infancy stage, I haven't researched that far.
Yeah. That's okay if you haven't faced a barrier.
God, y'all are a adorable couple. I'm serious, right? It's just so nice to watch couples that actually love each other,
Yeah.
right?
We're friends first.
It's just really nice. It's just really nice.
She just smiles every time we talk.
And vice versa, man. You see, that dude is just hanging on every word, neck always cocked. So I think that this would be a part of the video that would be incredibly important for people, and we'll start wrapping it up.
we have one quick one.
Yeah, Ben. Yeah.
Right.
Apologize.
Oh, sorry.
I low-key have to strike out.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, dude. Of course.
Man, can you give me his contact?
Yeah, man, you should get it right now. I said we see each other at work. That's it.
Well, if you need, talk to.
Yeah, I do have your card.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure, man. I'm proud of you, bro.
I'm really proud of you.
99% sure.
Did you have some people call?
For sure.
Thank you. Destined to eventually happen. I love it. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Please. I was about to say real quick,
See what?
sometimes we wanna get the job and sit back and secure the job. But I was just thinking, like, there are bystanders and there are upstanders. You know what I mean? Sometimes, like on the schoolyard, we see somebody getting bullied. It was always people that would stand up to the bully, and always people that would stand by and just let the kid get bullied, right? So I always teach, like when I'm working with youth, when I'm mentoring someone, be a disruptor and let the company you're working for know that you care about disrupting environments. Like my employer knows I'm a disruptor.
Oh, I can absolutely attest from the email thread that I saw. Yes, they do.
They know I'm a disruptor, and I'm safe in that space. He can attest to that too.
Yeah.
I'm not kicked out of the space because I'm a disruptor. We're in Black History Month. Now, will we really have the freedoms that we have right now if the Black Panther Party wasn't putting together week after school programs? They had to disrupt environments and not be afraid to get kicked out. You know, like what you were talking about.
Well, one point I was gonna add to that is, I also feel like the abundance of availability has created sort of almost like a paralyzing, I wouldn't say paralyzing fear, but just, during the era of Malcolm X, there was a box and everyone had to fit inside of this box. And I feel like when you put a group of people inside of a box, they fight like heck to get out. But it seems as though the more that we have advanced, the more liberties that we have, the less likely we are to fight, to get outside of still a box that we've been placed into. It's a bigger box, it has more options.
Amenities.
Yeah, more amenities, but it's still a box.
Yeah.
And, there's just not, there's not
That's a good point.
there's not a will to fight, but yeah, it's almost as though we have reached a level of comfort and we don't need to go any further.
It reminds me of an episode of Black Mirror where I think it was like basically they're in like this prison, but like the walls are like virtual screens. You know what I mean? It's like their world is just kind of what they see on these screens, but so they get to see freedom, but they don't get to really experience it.
Yeah.
So that's what.
Or know what it feels like.
Exactly.
And the word again comes up, invisible. When you were talking about the layoffs, I was looking at the box. The box is still there. It's in the fourth dimension.
Yeah.
And so, right? I mean, it's like two-dimensional beings can't see the third, and us three-dimensional beings can't really see the fourth. And so the fourth dimension is like this invisible box that's almost created a complacency and a submission through creature comforts. I mean, I think, I want to say, not even said it, but if I'm misquoting, which I could be, is like, people don't really want freedom, they want comfort.
Yeah,
That's real.
Yeah.
And they're willing to give up their personal liberty to get it.
Yeah.
And those that are disruptors are looked at as threatening that comfort. And it's interesting. I can't believe that it only took the attention span of Americans. I've always said are like a gnat. I can't believe it only took 2 years after George Floyd for the DEI stuff to get shut down.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm shocked, but I'm surprised at how fast that was rapidly wound down, especially with all the shit that's still happening.
But think about it, man. You had businesses burning down. That's a money move.
Yeah.
Businesses are burning down. Okay, if AutoZone's burning down, what's O'Reilly's gonna do? Black Lives Matter, bro. Think about it. Think about it. I would.
It's reactionary.
It's reactionary. But here's the thing. That was transactional. That's why it dried up. It wasn't transformative.
It was just when the light was shining.
It wasn't transformational. It was transactional giving. Black people are mad. Transaction.
Set up the fund.
Yeah.
And as in the room,
Yeah.
it appears that culturally I do shine the closest to white in the room. In Cajun Cherokee passing is white.
Yeah.
That's the reason why it didn't fucking work.
Yeah.
It wasn't really the space for the African American community to fucking keep pushing.
Yeah.
It's actually completely on the white community.
Yeah. But you know what? If it was more transformational, it could have been these spaces that we're talking about. And a lot of people, when we speak about capitalizing, shit, right now is the time to capitalize off connections with white people, man. Believe it or not. Because the partnerships with allies, it's as strong as it ever can be right now. Because it's almost like working when everybody's sleeping. You're the only one getting money right now. If everybody thinks the white people are the enemies, it's some cases in every city.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And
every community.
There's some cases in every
in
city.
every community.
You know what I
every
mean?
Community, dude.
And the cases are good for what the cases are good for, right? I'm not looking at people like they shouldn't be included in these spaces. As a black man, you don't think I notice how Casey treats you? Just to make sure my brother's taken care of. I speak to Casey more than I speak to you, but you're my brother too. So knowing that you have an ally in him that's different from your allyship in him. We know Tony Faleo, really good ally to me. Casey's my Tony Faleo for the Walls Project. You know what I mean?
Tony fucking hates me. Strike that from the record. You'll eventually love me. God, that dude can't fucking stand me.
I don't think he's that. Tony's he's an acquired taste. I think you love Tony, to be honest with you.
Yeah, he's got a great, good mind.
Yeah.
What's up? What you got?
He's getting older too. He's got that grumpy guy syndrome.
Yeah.
What you gonna say?
Two
She looked like she was about to say
Yeah,
something.
she did. Yeah, she did. All right, so abundance. You said the word abundance, and I'm going to start with you, and we're going to do it around the horn. We're going to close it off.
Okay.
So it was interesting. You're the first person ever in my entire life to use the word abundance and see the upside down of that, right? Because I'm always thinking out and up in everyone, right?
Yeah.
Scarcity.
Abundance mindset.
What's up?
Abundance mindset.
Abundant mindset, scarcity, slow level shit. And that's where we all are right now. So with abundance, right, what do you see? It was an interesting perspective, and that's totally having floating back to my mind around, so thank you. So in the futurist, put your future as third eye, like pluck it, right? Where is it going? Like where are we going? And what does it look like if it actually is working? It's the hardest question when someone says, close your eyes and describe what you see if everything that you're complaining about actually is fixed and your wildest dreams are achieved. What does the world actually look like with that?
That's a good question.
If everything is all fixed and fine and dandy, if I'm being honest, I see chaos. I do see chaos because in order for, I feel like in order for humans to function, you need a purpose. And sometimes that purpose comes from scarcity or it comes from being put in a box. And without that grit or that need to fight or that need to push forward because everything is good, it just seems like everything would be bad. Everything would be chaotic.
Oh, I can't wait till our families share
Yeah.
a meal. We're gonna write that on the middle of the table, and we're gonna go down.
Yeah.
To you, Darby.
Yeah, this is why
Uh-huh.
this is my wife. Like
Yeah.
she's awesome.
Yeah.
She doesn't look at things one dimensional. I can see why she said chaos, but I can see more. It coming from, man, we are really far behind other nations. Even when it considers just keeping our house together with mom and dad in the house, you know what I mean? And the children taking over the family business. If we were able to get all of that right, I can see a chaotic era of stabilizing where we are and how we pass generational wealth. Because they say more money, more problems, right? And money just exposes more of who you are. It's some people without a lot of money who are addicted to drugs. What do you think happened if they became millionaires overnight? Probably overdose, right? So you might have a chaotic era before stabilizing, but I would say if everything was fine and dandy, you would obviously have the rebirth of our nation, right? We could come to the table with more ability to protect what we just fixed, right? But then I do see the hardiness that could make us fall, that could be chaotic, when we're trying to come to the table right now. The goal for me is to go to the United Nations and publicize that and let the next generation pick up to continue to show, examples and evidence that we've faced a big atrocity in America, just being, so many steps behind other nations right now. And it's not gonna come from grants and funding to fix us. It's gonna come from everybody being on the same page. So I just see more work in the future, even when we fix the problem, because we don't know what the next problem will be, and we're gonna have another problem, So yeah, ability to protect what we just made perfect.
So, protected from what? Conversation for the dinner table, right? And really, as you're really formulating your strategy on closing the digital divide and human access to technology for incarcerated humans, and you're writing your mission and your vision statements and your goals and all that, I would, leapfrog to 2050.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what we just did. It's like while my whole team was doing their 3-year strategic plan, I sat in the back of the classroom like, it's so fucking boring.
Yeah.
I was like, dystopian disruption, 2050. What does this look like? What if your program works? What does it actually look like on the other side?
Yeah.
And if you can communicate that, it won't matter if DEI funds dry up.
No.
Because that's a movement.
Yeah, it looks like
Like
showing
people-
the creativity of incarcerated individuals, really showing that whole market right now. Yeah, because communication space and e-cigarettes, that's the only enterprises right now for incarcerated individuals. But even when you think about, why did the black era of Egypt, ancient Kemet, why did that fall? It was no one holding us back. There was no oppression over the Egyptian empire, but it still failed. So that's what I mean by
The inevitable Egyptian and Roman fall is going to happen regardless.
So what are we going to protect from? How are we going to be fall proof?
So from the all two answers, I'm really starting to float towards nihilism. Okay.
You know what
Just
it
like,
is?
oh, this optimism. Okay. Is it you?
I always have trouble, seeing a, perfect or idealistic future.
I'm about to ask you this question.
I'm all about future proofing. So, trying to figure out where the issue's going to be and how to, prepare yourself for it. I have a ton of coats and jackets, by the way. I'm the type of person, I over prepare for everything.
Okay.
So,
That's fair.
Are you a survivalist too?
No, no.
Okay. Didn't know.
I live deep out, I can't survive shit. But basically, where I see the future, first off, what I would like to see is a better relationship between Africans on the continent and in America and African Americans and Black Americans, because we've missed out on so many years of opportunity for development, sharing ideas and sharing resources that we've basically been cutting off our own feet.
Yeah.
And I would say on the African side, very, very, very much so, because we operate more with other nations than we do with the Black American nation. So that's what I would like to see. When it comes to what I see happening in the future, at the start of the talk, not to get too worried, but at the start of the talk, I started thinking about pre-pandemic and when the World Economic Forum talked about the Great Reset. Essentially, the Great Reset is saying that jobs and work itself, the nature of work, is going to dramatically change. This is pre-pandemic, right? So what we saw during the pandemic, lots more jobs focused on technology, remote work, and now we're seeing AI starting to come into play through, the most popular tool that's out today is ChatGPT. I think this is going to be a huge game changer because it's really one of the first widely used AI applications for just daily work. And you're starting to see companies replacing their workers, like BuzzFeed replacing their writers with this AI
AI,
program.
yep.
So the curve, trying to stay ahead of the curve just got a lot sharper.
Yeah.
So now, not just do we have to catch up with the tools that have been in use for 30 years, we have to look at the tools that are going to be in use for the next 30 years and jump in feet first and figure out, okay, well, how is this going to be used? What can we do to apply it to our needs, and how do we take control of this? So, in thinking about your son, he's a very logical thinker. Someone who has legacy thinking doesn't really understand how to talk to an AI tool, because just like code, what you put in is what you get out. And if you can speak logic to this processor, you're going to be more successful than somebody that doesn't understand how to talk.
Exactly.
So he may be better primed for working with AI tools because he has that logical procedural thinking already built in, versus someone who is coming at it and doesn't know how it works or how to talk to it. So I think AI is going to be a big player. We have to stay ahead of the curve, and we just have to keep working. That's it.
Hey, how many years have you been using Future Proof? Did we steal it from you, or did you steal it from us, or did we get it at the same
It's
time?
beautiful.
Right?
Like,
I mean, you're the
we're
only
trying
other
to
person I've ever heard use it. And
Yeah,
it's fascinating that we're in the same space.
Well, I mean, it's when
Same
we're working in
frequency.
tech, when you're working in
chaos,
tech,
protect, future proof.
because honestly,
And by the way, I have to give Keisha Whaley, I have to give her the credit. She's the one who kind of like deemed it for our collaboration in 2019. And she just like said it one day, like really off the cuff, and I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
what did you just say?
Future proof.
Because like that's the reason why. I mean, we just right now. I was telling Alan, we are creatively destroying our main program in our organization with the Futures Fund. Like without anybody knowing, I've completely shuttered it, destroyed it, and because it served the last 9 years, it has no relevance whatsoever into 2024, especially with ChatGPT and stuff. So it's like we're just like, instead of having this mid-air plane that you're trying to update, landed it, disintegrated it, and like remanifesting it into something different, so that everything that we're teaching young humans, regardless of skin color, economic caste system in America, right?
Yeah.
They have the future-proof skills that are going to not only keep up but get ahead, but it's up to them
Yeah.
in perpetuity to learn forever.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to all get it in a boot camp.
No.
no, we're gonna have to start teaching our kids how to use AI.
Yeah.
And automation.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Like from the crawling stage, right? Get rid of the wooden blocks.
No, but there's going. I'm telling you, there's going to be programs that your kids are going to get that. Basically, they're going to be talking to bots, and the bots. It's going to be like Google, researching your homework. Is going to be plugging it into algorithms, seeing what comes out. That's essentially TikTok today. Like you plug in a question, it's going
Comes
to
up.
pull back whatever it deems as the best answer based on your prior experience.
I mean, I'm so old that I remember when we were taking math in school and you got those TI calculators, and we were basically just like whiz everything, and it took like a solid year for the teachers to even get wise to it. And they're like, damn, they're all getting A's. I must be an amazing teacher.
No.
I just had better tools, right? Alan, same question, and Tanisha, you're going to close this out.
Oh, okay.
What does the future look like if everything that you are working to achieve happens and manifest? What does it actually look like? Alan.
Okay, well, even if things go away, I tend there's always gonna be some sort of conflict, because like that's just human. To me, that is human nature. Like no matter what happens, there's always gonna be some sort of conflict, and there's also gonna be some sort of tribalism. Like not sure you guys are familiar with Fairly Odd Parents, but there was like everybody's just great globs. They will find some other way to like separate themselves, segregate to somebody. Yeah. We have brighter teeth. You guys have darker grays. Like so even if we live in a world where like, hey, everything that made this person in 2023, they get what they want. Somebody in like 2050, they're dealing with a whole different slew of problems. And like I said before during like the presentation, like technology is only going further and further.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like before, I mean, people say like, you put your phone to like pay for stuff.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, like for example,
Yeah.
I live in an era where I used to do this. Kids do this.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah,
I
and
didn't catch it. But
as and as you were saying, like kids are also the future because people are kind of blinded by like, oh yeah, those old farts in the government, they'll just die off. No, they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They're grooming. They have their own generation that
They
they're
do.
grooming. They're
I've seen the young
Yes.
politicians.
yes,
Well, I signed up for all the Republican Party stuff, dude, and you should see the crazy shit that,
Yeah.
that I get.
exactly.
Yeah.
They're grooming.
Yeah.
Yes.
The young people.
Yes.
It's a thing.
And in the ideology.
Sorry for all the Republicans in the House.
Yes, so kids are the future. We know it, the ops know it, like everybody.
I like that.
Like they know it, so yes. We have to make sure like people disability or people who are able, they have the right knowledge, they're able to use technology how they use it. And in order to combat, like, here's the thing, we can't predict every single thing because the situation right then, like COVID, like the war with Ukraine, like how that affected us with gas. And so despite whatever we may think of, like if I get anything that I want, like whoever it be, either be my child or some random person, or it can be a person who's not even the same, I don't know, gender, race, background, or whatever, they're gonna have their own slew of problems to deal with.
Yeah.
Chaos.
Yeah.
Tanisha, close this out.
What does the future look like? When he mentioned COVID, you used to think that you knew what was next. Being when the world shut down, it made you realize you really don't know anything. You don't know what can happen.
Yeah.
I think we live in a world where your voice matters, and that where we hear people more. But I do think there will always be a divide, just simply because regardless of what you believe in as people, it just was genetically put in us from the beginning of time to see differences and to notice differences. Not to get too deep, but from the beginning of time, that just was. And so I see a world where we understand that, but I also see a world where we are more close-knit with our family and what family looks like to us. When you look at stores like Walmart going to self-checkout only, you see a growing rate when COVID hit of DoorDash deliveries and where people things get their song. I think we're more here. I think homeschool is more of a thing than we ever thought it would be. No longer will that be a world where those kids are dumb, they're under socialized, those stigmatisms that were with that, but that's legit, it's just the world we live in. I think we live in more of a bubble. We will fight for different things, equal rights, for economics, all of that, but our world, I think the future, we will become more of a bubble. And whatever is in your bubble will be your reality. It's my hope that I know in recent days, because, and I have to tell the background of the story, there was a post that was made about sign language, and it was then when I learned that American signs, what sign language looks like to us is not the same in every country. I never knew that. Okay, but they made this post of showing the letters, the alphabet, and it looked, some letters look the same, but it looked vastly different. And so I made the comment, don't post this, you're gonna confuse the deaf people. And people from a variety of different countries, for about 3 or 5 days, I fought with people, one person educated with me, but then there was another person that they tagged me in all of these different groups of, the Americans are at it again, and they're only thinking about themselves. And I hope that maybe not them learn about us, but maybe we take an opportunity to learn about more of the world outside and how it's functioning.
Yeah.
So we can know how to adapt, because even if you look at COVID-19, if we had paid attention to what other people were doing,
Yeah.
we would have probably been in a different
Fair,
place.
okay.
So, I think that's the world that we look at. I think children there will always be those children that do see color and they see, a separatism. But then there's another world where they no longer see that.
Yeah.
And that they don't, I still believe in that big world where we live in a rainbow happy family, and not just saying the rainbow in terms of LGBTQ, but rainbow in terms of the harmony that it talks about and it brings. That's the world that I believe in. But there will be a lot of different things that change and surrounding by that we will do things differently. We will, your groceries will come to your home, and that is just your norm. I believe like little carts are gonna come by, passing them by. I never thought you would go to a store. Walmart just went to self-checkout only in a few stores. 5 and below is like that. I never would have thought. First time I walked into a store and it was only one person was just sitting in the small computer. She go, you check yourself out. I went, oh my gosh.
But I'm paying you money.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Where's the customer service? Because customer service is gone.
And so you wonder then, I will say there is a world that I do slightly fear for my life when I get older. Because then what will we do?
Yeah.
Then what will be, yes, you will, there will have to be somebody that comes in to, this machine isn't working. So that will require,
Sound like a tech guy.
maybe, maybe.
Yeah.
It could be they send the robot down the road and they tell him what to press, maybe. But there will be some type of, but it does make you fear for, what will we do? How will we survive? How will we create income? What will working look like for everybody else? If we start, because you can see day by day even more now quickly. I know I've said it like 10 times. Walmart?
Yeah, he did.
Self-checkout only? Yay.
That shocked you, didn't
You
it?
say, on one hand, you go, yay, but do you understand
Yeah.
how big of a corporation Walmart is and how many people that's going to put out of jobs when you go down to
Wait
the
till the
bottom line of
self-driving
people?
trucks get there.
Amen.
Scary.
So it's so ironic too about Walmart, right? Now they're moving their minimum wage up to $17.50, and I'm like, well, yeah, after you hire people.
Yeah, and but you look at it,
It's just like,
you have Tesla, which is
nice timing.
these cars that are driving themselves.
Yeah.
How long is it before the delivery trucks are self-served? You have to think of everything is a test run for a bigger function.
48
I
months.
gotta say something about that. Sorry, but my belief is that every Tesla that was sold, and Tesla is heavily subsidized by the government. I think every Tesla that was sold was made to prepare the road for all cars to be automated, or
Right.
all trucks to be automated. Because it's essentially like a test of the system that
It's a data collection.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
And
it.
sometimes
It's data
people pay
collection.
top dollar to be a part of a test run.
Exactly. Yeah. So the Teslas are
That's how
essentially
dumb we
setting
are.
up.
Yeah.
To be one of the statistics.
Yeah.
And pardon my language, but there's also some bullshit where they want you pay subscriptions for cars.
I was just about to say that.
Yep.
Cadillac's doing it.
I'm like, what? I have to pay monthly for what? So I can go to my house?